Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News Channel. Today we're going to talk about VeChain, XYO, IOTA, and a couple of other supply chains, and how they really stand to benefit, especially VeChain, from the $50 trillion supply chain industry moving to blockchain, and it is moving to blockchain. So in an interview with Bloomberg, Daniel Tapscott, which is the chairman of the Blockchain Research Institute, obviously he's going to be a little biased, made some interesting observations. He stated that the perception that blockchain is a technology that can't scale and is used in nothing important is a myth. Blockchain technology is growing, and we've seen examples all over the world, including in supply chain, in the supply chain field, and adoption is gaining traction all across the world. He cited the increasing shift of the $50 trillion supply chain industry to the blockchain. Tapscott went a step further to cite companies like FedEx, which he said wants to rebuild its entire business on blockchain, chance for XYO coin. So with all the advantages that this shift will confer to this new technology, which blockchain platforms benefit the most from the supply chain shift? One of them obviously is VeChain, like another one is IOTA, there's XYO, Walton Chain, and a couple of others. But especially for VeChain, there are already many companies that are using VeChain blockchain in real practical world applications. One of them is DNVGL, which is using My Story, which allows businesses to use VeChain blockchain to track product and learn about its identity. So VeChain is very, very big on the identity thing. As per the DNVGL website, 3 Italian winemakers are already using this technology. And remember, this technology used by these winemakers is in production, and it all runs on VeChain, which means they all require VeTor. The My Story frontrunners are Italian wine producers Ricci, Curbs, Bastro, Ruffino, and Torvento. They are now ready to share the characteristics of their wine, traced from farming and winemaking to packaging and distribution. Consumers have access to all the facts using their smart device to scan the QR code on the bottle. In the connected consumer decentralized application, they can instantly browse product fact, the wine's timeline, and locations from grape store for every bottle. That's obviously a big deal because it eliminates the problem of counterfeits, which is a big problem in the global supply chain, not just in winemaking, but across industries. VeChain has a head start because they have the inroads with DNVGL. Deloitte also just switched from Ethereum to VeChain for all their certification processes. PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, is also on their blockchain for applications. And VeChain stands to gain adoption at a faster rate than other blockchains because they already have a lot of partnerships. Now, this does not mean that VeChain is going to take over a $50 trillion market. It doesn't even mean that the tokens that we're investing in need to be worth $50 trillion to service a $50 trillion market. That's not true at all. I think the token's net worth can be much less to service the $50 trillion market. Not everything is going to come onto blockchain, and not everything is going to need the tokens, and there are other big players in the field. IBM is a very big player in the supply chain industry field. They're still using Ethereum, but IBM might partner with other blockchains as well. We'll have to see what happens to that in the future, but VeChain has gotten a lot of traction, especially in areas like China and Singapore, which is where they're based. But Deloitte and PwC are planning to use them for their certification process in more than just the Asian region. So it's also noteworthy that VeChain has goodwill of one of the most strategic companies in global supply, countries in global supply, and that's China. And VeChain has in the past worked with China-based companies like BYD. VeChain has some sort of partnership at the state level with the country of China. Obviously, China is very secretive about this stuff, so we don't really have much information on it. But VeChain is definitely inroads into the Chinese government. Any large company that is actually in China that deals with technology is going to be kind of like, pretty chummy with the Chinese government because they need the support of the government to actually thrive. China is strategic to the growth of VeChain because it accounts for a huge portion of the 50 trillion supply chain market. That makes sense. China has a really large economy. Almost everything shipping across the world has its origins in China. Not really sure if that's true or not, but China does account for a lot of those things. Raw materials, too, are always flowing into China from all across the world around the clock. This makes it a strategic market for VeChain going into the future by giving manufacturers more control over what they produce. So, all this stuff is very good for the platform because all VeChain partners need to use VeTor, and every transaction on the VeTor blockchain requires VeTor, and since if you're holding VET, you generate free VeTor. So it's kind of like, the world needs power. VeChain's kind of like solar panels or geothermal power plants. They produce the power, and because of that, they actually have value in the growth market. So VeChain stands to gain a lot from this market. IOTA as well as other like more specialty things to do with FedEx like XYO and GPS tracking. But VeChain is one of the ones that's leading the pack, and it is in a high growth market. It is a huge market. Not really sure about the 50 trillion number. That does seem a little bit overboard, but it is a $1 trillion market, and VeChain stands to gain a decent share in this market. I'm not going to say a dominant share or a super large share, but a decent share in this market, and it looks like their growth is pretty well paved for the next few years, especially after the summit conference last week. So that's my report on VeChain. Like and subscribe if you like my content, retweet and share this on social media. Thank you and have a nice day.